What happens when a CEO scrubbing tables undercover hears a manager tell a bartender to lie to a customer's face? Franklin Reyes stood at the edge of the pier, watching the sun dip behind the ocean, the salty wind brushing his face. He owned all 10 locations of the beachside bar franchise now, but this one store 7 in Clearwater had him worried. Not because of numbers. The books looked fine, but something felt off. He'd been hearing inconsistent stories. One shift said they were short-staffed and overworked. Another claimed things were smooth. Reviews online were all over the place, some praising the drinks, others furious about rude service and long waits. Franklin bought the chain 6 years ago from an old friend who retired. He'd rebranded, modernized, and expanded it from 4 to 10 locations. But with growth came distance. Most employees had never seen him in person, and that was by design. He kept his face off the website, didn't do press. His appearances were limited to upper management meetings. He'd only ever visited this location once right after the opening. Now he was heading back, not as the boss. As Frank, a quiet, middle-aged guy just trying to get back on his feet after leaving a failed business. His gray-streaked wig, tan lines, and a pair of thick glasses helped sell it. His cover story, he was training to be a barback and busser. Management was told he was part of a pilot program from HQ to help with staffing shortages. The bar had been understaffed for weeks. A couple servers quit after a fight with the floor manager. One bartender left mid-shift and never came back. Hiring had been slow. Most applicants bailed after one interview. That's how Franklin slipped in unnoticed. His first shift started on a Friday afternoon, high tide, high traffic. "Frank, you're on table clears and ice runs. Don't touch drinks. Don't talk to customers." "Don't think," said the supervisor, a sharp-tongued guy named Gavin. "Just stay out of the way." Franklin gave a nod. "Got it." He spent the first hour wiping sticky tables, dragging trash bags out back, and hustling buckets of ice to the bar. His lower back burned, but he kept his head down. He watched everything. The bartenders moved fast, but one stood out: Elena Carter. She had calm hands, remembered complicated drink orders without writing them down, and still found time to smile at customers. She even helped Franklin carry an overloaded bus tub when no one else offered. "Hey, you're new?" she asked between orders. "Yeah, just started today," Franklin said. "Hang in there, it's not always this crazy." "Well, sometimes it is." She laughed, then turned back to a crowded bar. Gavin didn't laugh, he mostly barked. At around 6, a couple walked up to the bar, clearly tourists. The woman pointed to a sign hanging above the taps that read "Happy Hour, half off all drafts, weekdays 3-6 p.m. "Hi, can we get the half-off drafts?" the man asked brightly. Elena glanced at the clock. It was 6:05. Before she could answer, Gavin materialized behind her, leaned in low, and muttered, "Tell them the system already shut down the promo." "Got it?" Elena hesitated. "But it just turned 6. "I said the system shut it down. You got something else to do," Gavin said, voice low but sharp. Elena's jaw tightened. She turned to the couple. "I'm really sorry, but the system already ended the happy hour pricing. It flips automatically." The couple looked confused but didn't argue. They paid full price and walked off. Franklin had been wiping down the bar nearby, pretending not to hear. But he froze, hand clutched around a damp rag. He saw Elena glance at Gavin, her face stiff with guilt. That wasn't just a white lie. That was a directive. A manager forcing an employee to lie to a paying customer. Franklin swallowed hard and forced himself to keep moving. His hands shook slightly as he carried an empty tray to the back. That one moment told him more than any performance report ever could. It wasn't just about drinks. It was about trust, and someone was poisoning it. He stayed quiet for the rest of the shift, but his eyes were wide open now. By the end of the night, he had a list in his head: Gavin, the way he talked to staff, the way he pushed lies, the lack of support on the floor; Elena, calm under pressure, honest even when pushed into a corner. She deserved better. Franklin knew he needed to see more. This couldn't be fixed with a memo or a call. He'd come back for another shift. And soon, this bar was going to learn exactly who Frank really was. Franklin returned Saturday afternoon, wearing the same faded polo, same glasses, same quiet walk that made him blend in like furniture. The schedule had him down for a double-shift lunch through close. He didn't object. It gave him more time to observe. He started by restocking limes and scrubbing trays in the back prep area. It was cramped, poorly lit, and smelled like beer-soaked cardboard. A single oscillating fan barely moved the air. A server named Janelle brushed past him, muttering as she struggled to balance 3 plates on one arm. Her apron was stained, hair pulled into a tight bun. She didn't look up. "You all right?" Franklin asked, keeping his tone casual. "Fine," she said, not stopping. "Just trying not to drop $80 worth of entrees." She vanished into the dining room. By 4, the patio was packed. Franklin was bussing tables on the far side when he overheard 2 teenage hosts arguing by the entrance. "You were supposed to seat that party," one said. "No, I had the last one, you do it." "I've been on my feet since 11, don't start with me." They bickered until a family of 6 gave up waiting and walked toward the bar. Franklin stepped in and cleared 4 tables in a row without being asked. He didn't speak, just worked and listened. The team wasn't lazy. They were worn down, unsupported, and in some cases unsupervised. When he returned to the bar for another ice run, Elena was there again. She looked different, tired in a way that didn't show the day before. Her hair was pulled tighter, her voice hoarser. "You're back," she said while pouring a whiskey sour. "Most new folks quit after one night. I guess I'm stubborn." She gave a short laugh but didn't have time for more. A man at the bar slammed his glass down. "Where's my tab? I've been waiting 10 minutes." Elena turned quickly. "I'll grab it now, sir. Just one moment." "You said that 10 minutes ago." Franklin watched as she apologized again, printed the slip, and handed it over. The man snatched it and walked off without a word. "He's been like that all afternoon," she said under her breath. "Had 3 margaritas and thinks I'm the reason he's sunburned." "You okay?" "Yeah," she said, but her eyes flicked toward the office hallway. "Just trying not to make waves." Franklin followed her gaze. A door stood half open at the end of the hall. Inside, Gavin sat at a desk, feet up, scrolling on his phone. The bar was slammed, and he hadn't been out front in over an hour. By 6, the kitchen was backed up. Orders were taking 25 minutes or more. Franklin was clearing a booth when a server named Marcus cornered him near the bus station. "You seen Gavin?" Franklin shook his head. "Figures. I've got a table threatening to walk out because their food's late, and I can't even get a manager to comp the appetizers." He stormed off. Franklin walked into the back hallway and stood outside the office door. He knocked once. Gavin didn't look up. "What?" "Marcus needs you up front." "Table issue." Gavin exhaled loudly. "Then tell him to deal with it. Says the customers might leave." Gavin dropped his feet from the desk. "Fine." He pushed past Franklin without acknowledging him further. 10 minutes later, Franklin passed by the same table. The customers were gone. Plates untouched, Marcus stood nearby with his arms crossed. "Didn't even apologize," Marcus muttered. Franklin went back to the bar. Elena was refilling syrups, wiping sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. "You ever get breaks?" he asked. She shook her head. "Only if it's raining or slow, which it isn't." A man in a golf shirt leaned over the bar, snapping his fingers. "Hey, can I get service here, or is this a charity?" Elena turned, opened her mouth, then paused. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "I'll be with you shortly, sir." "Been waiting 10 minutes, it's not that hard, you pour drinks." Franklin felt his hands curl involuntarily. Elena didn't flinch. She served him quickly, thanked him, and moved on. By 8, the crowd shifted. More locals. Louder music. Franklin slipped into the back storage area to restock glassware. That's when he heard raised voices from the kitchen. "You can't talk to me like that," one shouted. "I'll talk how I want." "You're not keeping up." Franklin stepped closer. Through the swinging door, he saw a line cook, probably no older than 20, backing away from a prep manager, a tall man in his 40s. The line cook's hands were shaking. "You're always on my back," he said. "Because you're slow." I'm doing 3 stations by myself. Franklin pushed through the door. Everything okay here? He asked, his tone even. The prep manager turned. This isn't your concern. I just need more pint glasses, Franklin said, stepping between them. Didn't mean to interrupt. The line cook looked at him, eyes wide. Franklin gave him a small nod, then turned and left. Back near the bar, Gavin was talking to one of the hosts. She was maybe 17, short, blonde, with braces and a nervous energy. You're not wearing the right shirt, Gavin was saying. This is the one they gave me. It doesn't fit. You look like you're borrowing it from your brother. The girl looked down at herself, cheeks reddening. Go in the back and swap it. You're supposed to look presentable. Franklin dropped the tray in his hands. What's the issue? He asked. Uniform violation, Gavin said without looking at him. She's working a 10-hour shift, Franklin said. I think she's presentable. Gavin narrowed his eyes. Did I ask your opinion? I think the customers are more concerned with getting seated than judging shirts. The host looked from one to the other, then quickly walked off. Gavin stepped in closer. You keep chiming in, Frank. You trying to get a promotion or something? Franklin held his gaze. Just trying to help people do their jobs. Then stay in your lane. The rest of the night passed in tension. Franklin worked the floor, checked in on the kitchen, and watched Gavin do less and less. By closing time, the staff looked drained. Elena's hands were red from wiping down the bar. Marcus was stacking chairs with a limp in his step. As Franklin took out the last trash bag, he passed the office again. Gavin was inside, counting tips from the bar jar. Franklin stepped in. You skimming? Gavin looked up. Excuse me? You're not bar staff. Why are you counting their tips? Manager discretion. That's not how it works, Gavin. Gavin stood up. You're just a busser. Franklin took off his glasses. I'm the owner. Gavin froze. I've been working here the last 2 days, watching everything. The lying, the harassment, the way you treat the staff. You're done here. Gavin's mouth opened, but no words came. Franklin stepped aside. Leave the building. Now. Gavin hesitated, then stormed out, knocking over a chair on the way. Franklin walked back into the bar. Elena and Marcus were still cleaning. You don't have to finish that, he said. They looked up. I'm Franklin Reyes. I own this place. Neither moved at first. I went undercover to see what was really happening here. I saw enough. Elena stepped forward slowly. You're the owner? I am. And I owe you all a hell of an apology for letting things get this bad. Marcus looked at the empty manager's office. So, is Gavin gone? For good. Elena sat on a bar stool, speechless. Franklin leaned on the counter. Tomorrow we start fixing this. The next morning, Franklin arrived before sunrise. The kitchen lights were still dark, the patio chairs stacked, the smell of stale fry oil clinging to the quiet air. He let himself in with the master key and moved through the empty space slowly, checking each corner like it was the first time. He stopped at the bar, ran his fingers along the edge where Elena had spent the night before drying glasses in silence, and stared at the clipboard Gavin used to sign off payroll. He placed it in a box labeled Shred. By 7:30, the early prep cooks began to trickle in. One of them, a quiet man with deep lines around his eyes and a slight limp, paused when he saw Franklin in plain clothes moving crates in the dry storage. You're not Frank, are you? I'm Franklin Reyes. I own the company. The man nodded once and got back to work without saying anything else. At 8, Franklin gathered the morning staff in the back hallway, not in the office, which he left open and empty on purpose. Most of them stood with crossed arms or skeptical stares. A few looked at the floor. Elena wasn't there yet. She was on the night shift again. Marcus leaned against the wall, still rubbing his neck from the previous night. I need to say something before anything else, Franklin began. You've been carrying this place on your backs, some of you working doubles, others dealing with things no one should have to put up with. I saw it with my own eyes. I let distance become an excuse and it won't happen again. No one spoke, but no one left either. We're not doing a clean slate. We're doing a hard reset. Gavin is gone. Effective immediately, Marcus will be interim floor lead. I've already spoken to HR. You'll get a temporary pay bump starting today. Marcus blinked, caught off guard. Sir, I don't, you've earned it. You keep this place standing. You're not alone now. A server in the back, a woman with short dreadlocks and a surgical mask around her neck, raised her hands slightly. What happens when corporate forgets about this again? Franklin stepped closer. I'm not corporate, I'm the owner, and I've got a desk right here now, upstairs. You'll see me more often than you want to. Some chuckled under their breath. I'll be working the floor with you today, not watching. Working, and I want every one of you to tell me when you have time what's broken. Don't censor yourselves. The meeting ended without applause, but people didn't scatter like they used to. They lingered, talked. Even the dishwasher, who rarely spoke more than 2 words, asked if he could get a new pair of gloves. By 10, the first round of guests arrived. Franklin stayed behind the bar, helping prep garnishes and restocking fridges. He didn't make drinks, he wasn't trained, but he kept a steady rhythm going behind Elena, who walked in exactly 3 minutes before her shift and froze when she saw him standing openly behind the bar. "You're really here," she said. "I don't like empty promises." She tied on her apron, glanced at the clipboard now replaced with a dry erase board listing everyone's shift and assigned duties, and nodded without a word. At noon, a group of regulars took their usual stools. One of them, a man with a white ball cap and burnt shoulders, waved Elena over. "Hey, where's the angry guy with the walkie, the one who always yelled about coasters?" "Gone," she said without explanation. The man grinned. "About time." Service moved smoother than Franklin expected. Not perfect orders still backed up a bit, and one of the fryers broke mid-shift, but the tension had eased. Staff spoke with each other instead of snapping. Janelle, the server who never made eye contact before, actually asked Franklin if he needed help lifting a box of soda cans. During a short lull, Franklin stepped outside for a minute to call HR. He gave them direct instructions. Expedite the hiring freeze at Store 7, prioritize backfilling kitchen staff, and begin screening applicants for a permanent general manager. Not someone from corporate, someone local. Someone who knew this team already or was willing to learn. When he returned, he found Elena behind the bar, wiping down the counter with one hand while holding her phone in the other. Her fingers trembled slightly. "You okay?" he asked. She looked up, startled. "Yeah." "Sorry, just my sister got sent home from school again. Asthma. They keep claiming the nurse isn't available and I can't leave mid-shift." "Do you need to go?" "I can't. We're short already." "I've got someone checking on her." Franklin thought for a moment, then walked into the back office and returned with a small notepad. "Write down every time you've had to cover for someone else's mistake," he said. She frowned. "Why?" "Because I'm building a record, not of failures. Of who's holding this place together, and if you're carrying more than your share, I want to know." Elena hesitated, then took the notepad and stuck it under the bar. An hour later, a man in business casual walked in button-down shirt, loafers, Bluetooth in his ear. He sat at the bar and flagged Franklin down. "You got kombucha?" Franklin shook his head. "Not on tap and not bottled." "Figures," the man muttered. "You guys always say you're a beach bar, but you don't even have basic health-conscious options." Franklin didn't respond to the tone. "We've got fresh juices. Orange, pineapple, watermelon," the man scoffed. "No thanks, just bring me a water, cold, not tap." Elena passed by behind Franklin. The man's eyes followed her. "She's new?" he asked. Franklin didn't answer. "She looks too sharp for this place." "You sure you're paying her enough?" Franklin leaned forward, steady. "Sir, that's not an appropriate comment." "I'm just saying you've got people here who could run circles around your last guy. What was his name? Gavin? That guy hated customers. You knew Gavin?" "Oh yeah, I come here a lot." "Was wondering when someone would finally pull the plug on that creep." Franklin stayed quiet. The man tapped the counter. "Let me know if you hire someone who knows kombucha, might come back." He left without finishing his water. Elena didn't react. She didn't have to. Her silence was louder than a complaint. By 5, the dinner crowd started rolling in. Franklin moved between the bar and the front host stand. The new host, the girl who'd been embarrassed about her shirt the day before, smiled when she saw him. You're not pretending anymore. Not today. Good. It was weird. She handed him the waiting list, 3 parties, all manageable. Later, as the sun dipped and cast long shadows over the patio, Franklin found Marcus near the service station, rubbing his temples. "Been on since open?" Franklin asked. "Yeah, I'm good, just juggling." "You need a break. I'll take one after the next turn. We've got 5 tables waiting." Franklin nodded. "How's it feel without the weight?" Marcus looked out across the floor, still heavy. "But at least I know why now." Franklin clapped him lightly on the shoulder. "You've got backup now." As the last table cleared and the bar dimmed for closing duties, Franklin stayed behind to help mop. Alina was finishing inventory, her fingers stained from pen ink and lemon rinds. "I don't know what's going to happen next," she said. "We're going to rebuild," Franklin replied. "And if it breaks again, then I'll be here to fix it faster." She nodded once, then turned back to her clipboard. Franklin walked to the front doors, locked them, and looked out at the quiet street. It wasn't fixed, but it was finally facing the right direction. The following week wasn't smooth. It wasn't supposed to be. Franklin spent every day inside the Clearwater location from open to close, never behind a desk. He worked side by side with whoever needed him, slicing citrus, hauling ice, wiping down the bar, and more importantly, listening. He started each morning with a brief huddle in the dining area, standing shoulder to shoulder with the staff, never above them. These weren't speeches. He asked questions, gathered feedback, and then got to work. By Wednesday, the reality of the workload settled in. They were still short 2 cooks. The back patio chairs were starting to splinter, and the AC in the dish pit was barely pushing air. Franklin brought in 2 industrial fans and paid out of pocket for a temporary repair until a new unit could be installed. He also handed Marcus a clipboard with one note. "Delegate 3 tasks a day. You're not a hero, you're a lead." Marcus read it, nodded once, and started handing off side duties he'd been silently hoarding. Franklin didn't hover. He noticed when Janelle started checking in on Alina between rushes. He noticed when the new host, Brenna, began writing down guest notes, birthdays, allergies, preferred tables, and taping them under the podium for the next shift. These weren't policies. No one told them to do it. They were just taking pride in something they finally felt ownership over. One afternoon, while refilling the soda station, Franklin noticed a man seated near the service bar staring openly at one of the young male servers. The server, Theo, looked visibly uncomfortable, adjusting his collar between drink runs. Franklin walked over without hesitation. "Everything all right here?" he asked the guest. "I'm fine," the man said, not looking at him. "Just watching the help work." Franklin's voice stayed level. "You're staring at one of my employees. You're making him uncomfortable. If it continues, you'll be asked to leave." The man scoffed. "This is a bar, not a monastery." Franklin didn't flinch. "This is a workplace. You're done here." He waited. The man stood, muttering under his breath, and walked out without further protest. Theo came up to him minutes later, still shaken. "I didn't want to cause a problem." "You didn't," Franklin said. "You showed up. That's enough." By Thursday, Franklin had begun interviewing candidates for the general manager role. He passed on 2 applicants from corporate who had never worked the floor. Instead, he called in someone who'd left the company a year prior, Nina Delgado, a former assistant manager from a nearby location who had stepped away to care for her father. She met him at the bar mid-shift, wearing a navy button-down and flat shoes. "I didn't expect to hear from you," she said as they sat at a side table. "I heard you didn't leave because of the work. You left because you had to." She nodded. "He passed in March. I've been thinking about coming back. Would you come back here?" She looked around. "If the people here want me." "They do," Franklin said. "But I won't hand it to you. Work the floor this weekend, paid training, full shifts. If the team backs you, the job's yours." Nina smiled but said nothing. She just extended her hand. By Saturday night, she was back in uniform, leading by example. She pulled a shift with Marcus, walking the floor and correcting ticket delays without ever raising her voice. When a keg line burst mid-service, She climbed under the bar herself and reconnected it. Elena caught Franklin watching from the corner. "She fits," she said simply. "Yeah," he replied. "She does." Franklin didn't rush. He understood trust wasn't something he could restore with a title or a memo, so he kept earning it. He called a staff-wide meeting Sunday night after close. No guests, no drinks. Just the entire team gathered in the dining room, chairs pulled into a loose circle. Nina stood at the edge, not speaking yet. Marcus held a notepad but didn't write. Elena sat cross-legged with a pen behind her ear. Franklin stepped into the center. "No one's required to speak tonight," he said. "But I want to make something clear. This isn't a temporary fix. This is your store. You deserve leadership that respects you, protects you, and listens." He glanced around. "I failed by being absent. Gavin failed by being abusive. And all of you kept working anyway. That ends here. From now on, there's zero tolerance for mistreatment, from customers, from staff, from anyone with a title. I don't care how long they've been here." A few heads nodded. One of the line cooks, a woman named Reyes, raised her hand. "What if we see something and the manager doesn't?" "You come to me," Franklin said. "Direct. No chain of command when it comes to safety or respect." Theo cleared his throat. "I didn't think anyone would say anything the other day about that guy I'm not used to. Someone having our back." "You've got it now," Franklin replied. Marcus spoke next. "I thought I'd be stepping up for a week, not standing here like this. I appreciate the trust, but I want to keep training. I'm not done growing." "You're not supposed to be," Franklin said. "None of us are." Nina stepped forward. "I've worked under good managers and bad ones. The difference wasn't training manuals, it was whether or not we were treated like people." She looked at the staff. "I'm not here to rescue anyone, I'm here to earn my spot. Just like you do every shift." No one spoke for a moment, but the silence felt full, not empty. Franklin closed the meeting with one final statement. "You carried this place through its worst. Now we build it into its best." He left the floor that night only after the last chair was stacked and the last door locked. In the weeks that followed, Clearwater's reviews began to shift. Not all 5 stars. Franklin didn't want fake praise, but the tone changed. Guests mentioned names. They praised patience, kindness, warmth. They noticed a difference. Elena was promoted to bar lead and given schedule authority to protect her evenings when needed. Theo was given a referral to a mentorship program for young hospitality professionals. Janelle was offered a regional trainer role after Nina noticed her ability to coach without condescension. The store didn't become perfect. Orders were still missed, glasses still broke, but the weight was no longer carried in silence. Franklin returned to his HQ office after a month, but not before installing a simple glass plaque beside the host stand. It read, "This store belongs to its people, not its problems." He visited every 2 weeks after that, wore no disguise, never stayed in the office long. He didn't need to hide anymore. He knew the truth now, and so did they.